and welcome to another episode of the Paperstac podcast. I am Brett Burky, and this is Rick Allen. And we're here today to talk to you about something that a lot of buyers would really find interesting.
Yes.
And, so we know some of these, you can't, mortgage notes can get expensive, and so there is ways to do funding. And that's what we want to talk to you today is ways of funding a note deal. And so...
Yes, there's
a couple ways to do it. But I'm going to let Rick talk about the ways he knows, and then we can introduce some stuff.
Sure. So some of the, I guess when you first get started, it's like you're, putting together some money. Maybe you got a 401k or something like that. You want to get started. And so your own cash, your own capital, your own retirement funds, that's the obvious, hey, fund it with your own money. Mm-hmm. But usually what happens is that only goes so far. So you get tapped out on cash, and then you're sitting there going, well, I want to buy more notes, because once you start buying notes, you want to buy more notes. That's just the way it goes. So you have to figure out, what am I going to do to get more capital? And there's a few different routes that we've done to get capital, and there's some other stuff that's kind of coming to light now. One of the first ways to get more capital into your account is to sell a partial.
Explain to them what a partial is.
So a partial is when you maybe buy a loan and you want to, say you bought a loan at a pretty good discount. Maybe you're buying a non-performing loan right now, you get it performing again, and you got it at a 60% discount. And what you can do is you can sell the next 5 years, 2 years, 10 years of payments, however many years of payments you want on a certain yield. And oftentimes, and I see people do this on the platform quite often, they might buy something for $35,000 that's worth, the principal balance on it is $55,000 or $60,000, and they'll turn around and sell a partial on it for $34,000. So they'll leave $1,000 in a deal, and they'll go ahead and recover $34,000 of their capital. And the way a partial works is when you sell that, those payments that are being made go to the person that purchased the partial. And again, multiple ways you can do this, multiple ways you can kind of slice it and dice it. But typically that's what happens. And then after the given number of payments you've sold have expired or been paid, then that loan reverts back to you. And so you would have the last half or the last quarter of that mortgage ultimately with $1,000 left in it.
Right.
That's your basis. So that's one way to do it. And that's a very popular way, something that a lot of people teach. Eddie Speed is definitely, the first time I ever saw it was with Eddie Speed. I was at the 5-star conference in Dallas and kind of walked into him, and he was showing the $100 model, he called it, and it blew my mind. I was like, holy cow, what a...
Tell me that one. That one's really cool.
It's basically selling a partial, but you leave $100 into it, and that's what the IRS deemed that you had to leave in there as a substantial investment or something along those lines. Don't quote me on it. I don't know if those rules have changed, but when I got into it way back when, that's how it was. So a really great way to do this. Again, like I said, Note School, they teach that this is a great way to recapitalize your funding account. But there's other people out there who teach it too. The next thing, a joint venture partner.
Yep.
A lot of people go out there, they find good deals. Maybe you're just plugged in and you're really good at working deals. You've been doing it for a while. You're tapped on capital. You don't want to sell a partial. Well, what do? Well, you can get a JV partner. Somebody else who will bring the money. You do the work. Mm-hmm. And that's a really great way, especially if you've got a track record. If you've already got a track record, it's awesome. You can just say, look, here's what I've done. Here's how it's doing. I'd love to have you in on it. Here are the deals I have lined up.
Yeah, we knew a guy that said, he did. What was it? Robert Wood? Remember that name?
Maybe, I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't remember. That's what his strategy. He was a local guy here.
Yeah, I know he did that, JV partners. I know that, I will say this. You got to be caveat emptor, right? Mm. You want to be a good JV partner, but you also realize that if you're doing a joint venture with somebody, you want to know, well, what kind of capital are they? Are they going to be active capital where they're constantly wanting updates and touching, or are they more passive and patient capital? Definitely when you're doing notes, patient capital is key, because patient capital can it's just something you want to do because they're not necessarily always calling you. And I've seen and spoke to a lot of investors who have bad JV partnerships where they're just not.
Yeah, I've seen that. People, they're selling those notes on the site. They want to get out of the JV.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, I just want to get rid of this note. Just want to, split ties.
Yeah. So joint ventures are great. That's another way to raise capital or to get more capital. Then you can kind of go even a little bit further down into the into this, and you can open up a structured fund, like a Reg D fund, where you're putting together large chunks of capital from accredited investors, and you're going to invest that way. Usually that requires an attorney. It requires a lot of track record. It requires a pretty laid out business plan on what you're going to do. It's going to cost you a little more money up front, but it can take you from having a couple bucks to you can have millions of dollars by putting that and structuring the regular like a Reg D. And then there's the Regulation A Plus, which is you can take money from just about anybody, accredited or non-accredited.
That one's real expensive.
That one's really expensive to set up, and you can you're capped on what you can raise. I don't we did one. It was good. I don't know that I would do another one again, just because it's a lot of work to raise money $1,000 at a time. It's much easier if you get somebody who wants to write checks for 100, 200, 500, something like that. Yeah. But again, you got to figure out which fund is right for you.
Right.
So another way to do it is maybe you're talking to somebody who's got a large portfolio, and maybe they we did 2 different purchases like this where they actually owner financed the deals to us.
Oh wow, really?
Yep. So some of these things were legacy, and they wrote us, we agreed to give them X amount of money down, and they were able to still collect some interest. Those you gotta know what you're doing on those, because the interest will eat you up, right?
Right. Because you're paying interest, although the borrowers these are probably not performing.
No, they were performers.
So
that was the thing, is the borrowers were making payments, and obviously the amount of money that we were making off of the borrower payments far exceeded that which we were paying on the loans. So it worked out. If you can move quickly and turn and burn, it's a great way to get assets and then start selling them, and it's almost like a warehouse line. Use it like that. You can sell them quickly.
Explain a warehouse line.
Like you're using a big chunk of funding up front because you know that you're going to be able to sell it quickly. So you'll take all this stuff. You may have $1 million credit line or a warehouse line. You're going to go ahead, use that $1 million to acquire. Maybe you're buying non-performing. You're going to turn around, get them performing again, and then move them off your warehouse line to open up that $1 million again. There's some funds out there who they'll operate 2 or 3 different funds. And they've got like a dividend fund. They've got a fund that they're using for buying non-performers, and then once they turn them performing, they sell them into their dividend fund. Or they've got a commercial fund. And so there's a bunch of different funds they have there, and that way you're not handcuffed on what kind of assets you can buy.
Yeah.
And you've got different vehicles for each type of asset that you want to purchase.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that there's the owner finance stuff. Again, that's going to involve an attorney because there's a couple different ways you can structure those loans. We've done 2 purchases, 2 acquisitions with different counterparties, and we did owner financing on both of them. So it works out. You wind up spending $600,000 and buying $6 million in principal balance. So if you get the right discount, the interest rate works for everybody, it's a great way to do it.
You gotta find how do you find those people that would have the portfolio to do it?
You just ask. You just got to be in it. If you're talking to somebody and they've, a lot of times that's how these came about. We were one we bumped into at a conference. The other person we've known for a while. They sent us over a portfolio and they said, here's we got this tape that we want to sell. And so TJ actually structured both of those and said, this is what we're looking to do. And he said, okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Never heard of that one.
That's a good way to do it. And then there's actually just hard money financing. There's credit lines. You can obviously use your
Home equity.
Lines, stuff like that. But you can go to somebody like what we have rolling out with George Newberry over at AHP. They've got a funding solution to where they'll be your lending partner for acquiring loans. So that's going to be a whole different way that you can use to buy assets.
Yeah, so you still got to bring some money to the table, but you could do a double up of where you have something like a home equity line of credit where you're able to use that as your down payment, your piece of the puzzle, and then they offer the rest of the pie. So I mean that's a pretty interesting strategy.
That's another interesting strategy. I see you have TARDIS pulled up, and they have
the income snowball.
The income snowball is a way that you can start.
That involves like a line of credit.
Those are lines of credit. So there's just a lot of different ways that you can get out there and start buying. I kind of started with what people usually start with, and that's using their own capital, and then maybe going to selling partials or hypothecation as another way to sell kind of a partial or get some funding on your loan that you've already owned, and then kind of ran down the list of didn't intend to, but it kind of worked out to where the further down the list you go, minus maybe the last one of getting lending from somebody else on it, that you need to have been doing this for a little bit at least to have some sort of track record.
And one I've heard of that I'm still trying to dig into, and I hope it's true if I can figure it out. There's a thing called Plastic.
Plastic?
Yeah, it's spelled with a Q on the end. And what they're able to do is so the guy I spoke with had, perfect credit, so he gets these no interest credit cards for 18, 22 months, whatever, something like that. And then he will go to Plastic and then he'll get the cash to use it. And then he'll go buy assets and with that be able to turn it around within that time frame and sell off.
Interesting.
And so
sounds kind of like that credit line, warehouse line, floor.
Yeah. I mean, I had meetings with Plastic. We're still going back and forth, but
infinite banking. That's another one.
Infinite banking. Yeah. But that takes time.
That takes time to build up. But the infinite banking is when you get life insurance policies and you basically borrow from yourself against your policy. Yeah.
So I actually have one of those. I ignore it for now because you got to wait till like 6 or 7 years, and it starts to actually look really good. And then once that's going, you're like, all right, now I can really use it. So it's a slower method, unless you get like some people. A lot of the people I know that have got infinite IBC accounts is they left their corporate job and instead of rolling over their 401k, they're an entrepreneur now, so they'll put it into an IBC account instead of or a self-directed IRA account. So instead of putting it back into something else, so it'll let it sit stagnant. But I mean, yeah, I guess those are the gist of it. I mean, we will be doing more with AHP fund. I don't think it's AHP fund. I don't know if it's pre-REO.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. But it's George Newberry normally puts his stuff together pretty well. So there's something else coming down the pipe for that. So that kind of covers it. Looks like we're about to overheat. So we'll have to stop this now so the camera doesn't shut off. So that's it for now. Brett and Rick checking out. We'll catch you on the next episode.